over. What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic weekend. Hope your Saturday is going well. If you are watching this, your Saturday did not quite go as planned, I'm assuming. Hoping everybody's having a fantastic, what do you call it, re-quarantine? I know down here in Texas, they just recently, I don't know, sent us back home, at least for the time being. So wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what I've been up to with the truck, what I was up to this past Friday at the drag strip with the mistress, and bring you guys up to speed as far as, you know, a lot of, as far as ETs and tuning and, you know, how to, the, you know, ETs versus DA, how all of that kind of correlates, especially when you start talking about, hey, Michael, what's going on, man? Got the arm flex, I like it. Especially when you start talking about how the DA can really be a little bit misconstrued, especially when you start looking at humidity numbers. So one of the things I'll start off with a little bit of a truck chat real quick. Boondoggy, what's up? So working on the truck today, as you guys know, I'm in kind of the throes right now of this 72C25. Story, what's up, man? Vegas, what up, B? What's up, man? Say he's got a long question, we'll post it. I'll get to it eventually. TU's asking, been meaning to ask you, what's your favorite non-American performance car you've driven? Non-American performance car, it depends on the venue. So when I'll put it to you like this, I'm going to cut to the chase. When I lived in NorCal, I had a 350Z, and I drove that car up and down PCH, up in the mountains, pretty much everywhere. And I would rail with that car up in the mountains. In that car's environment, I'm not talking about straight line performance. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm just talking about a very good handling car that isn't overwhelming, but one that I could step out, I could drift it a little bit, I could be up in the mountains just raising hell with it. That car would kind of do it all. So I would say 350, 370Z, and that car in its element is really hard to beat. As a matter of fact, I kind of had a practice run where I would just go balling down PCH, pick up 280 on the backside. I would run up La Honda. I would run out to HMB, which is Half Moon Bay, where all the surf competitions are. You know, out in that area, Pacifica, out in that area, it's just a lot of fun. So anyway, probably that car, just because it was never overwhelming. I could flat foot it through sweepers. The car was just a lot of fun. So, Ruben's checking in saying, what's happening, B? Watching from NorCal, I like it. Dollar Power's in, yo, Mr. Mason, what's up? What's up, man? CFL's got thumbs up. I like it. Yeah, my hands are filthy still. I just got out of the shower too. So, getting back to it, working on the truck, and here's the funny thing. So, where do I begin with this? So I had put the motor mounts in, put the tubular supports in, and was literally, and the headers. I got the mid-length headers. And the idea is just to get an exhaust system on the truck, get the truck over to Justin to get the transmission and the leaf springs knocked out, and then start building on the truck from there. Well, things got a little bit weird. So I go to start the truck up to move it to another part of just basically where the fleet is at the house. And I damn near drove it through a fence. And then what had happened was, in some weird spot, I still don't know how this happened. This is it's a mystery to me how this happened. If you can imagine like a baby fingernail, just this little half moon, basically failure in one of the front brake lines. Pedal went straight to the floor. Had a little bit of residual pressure in the system. Truck came to a halt. Wasn't that big deal. It's like, holy shit, about took out the fence. So I got up underneath the truck and I was trying to find it. Now I've already told you what it was, but I didn't tell you where it was. Where it was actually facing, because from my point of view, if this is the K member, all the brake lines run along the back side of the K member. Well, the cut was facing the K member, nowhere near any hard mounts or anything like that. It was really, really weird, but I did find it. I had to do a little bit of sleuthing, so ordered up some brake lines for the truck, fixed the primary one, and in the process found out that, well, I needed a new distribution block because, you know, of course the fittings from the old lines were seized up in there, right? For the one line that I was working on. So had to get that knocked out. Then found out that my bleeder on my caliper was basically frozen to the caliper. So I'm gonna have to get new calipers anyway because I'm getting new brake lines and everything else. But the point of it is I just wanted to get done with this thing so that I could get it ready to get the next phase started. So I get the brake line knocked out, and it's kind of funny. I couldn't get the bleeder, so I just kind of ran fluid through the system, tightened everything up, and just went to pressurize the system, and you hear this pch, 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 and I'm going, oh shit, what the hell? Did I not tighten something? I mean, did I forget something? What's going on here? I crawl up underneath the front of the truck. Everything looks great. In fact, everything looked better than great. I mean, it just was dry. Everything's fine. I go and I turn. It's the passenger side rear that is squirted out the brake fluid. Keeping in mind that I hadn't gone anywhere near the passenger side rear rear wheel, much less the drum. And so, I don't know, I think little Miss Sierra loves me because she's so far chosen the driveway to have brake line failures, which is a real good thing. But the odd thing about it, it broke the hard line, not the soft line, popped the hard line. In fact, it blew a chunk out of it, about like that. It was basically like if somebody, like a itty bitty person, hit it with a 9 wedge. It just blew a chunk right out of it. So I will need to get that sorted out. I've already checked everything in the back. Everything in the back is able to be loosened. At least the things that I need to be loose, looks like they can all come apart. So that's a good thing. And of course the lines going into the drums, I made sure those could come out. Everything's cool. So it looks like that swap's not going to be that hard. But it's just the idea behind it. I knocked out the most difficult front line, which is the passenger side, because it does a freaking roller coaster trip going to that side. Driver's side isn't all that bad. I'm waiting to do that one. Obviously, things took a little bit longer than I thought, what with me having to go get a distribution block and all of that. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is, when you're messing with these older cars or trucks or whatever, there's a lot more to them than just, well, you might have to get an engine rebuilt, or hey, let's do an LS swap on whatever. Let me tell you guys something. I mean, it's spooky to think of what could have happened with this thing. And of course, I'm in the process of swapping everything out. So, really no harm, no foul. But when you're dealing with one of these older vehicles, don't just look at the drive line. You need to be looking at the brakes first. Make sure that thing will stop, right? So anyway, got that knocked out. I'll be ordering up the brake lines this week, and what we'll do is get those swapped out, order up the calipers, put some new pads on it, and do the other front brake line. Hopefully that will sum up the brake system. Probably have to get new brake cylinders for the rear, or wheel cylinders rather for the rear. But that should pretty much hem that entire operation up. Fingers crossed. But it'll have basically more or less a new brake line, or it will have new brake lines going all over the place. So that's a good thing. Now, getting into some of the tuning things. Here's kind of the funny thing. So a lot of times guys talk about density altitude. Density altitude's always the big equalizer, right? Everybody wants to, talk about, well, what is it correct to, this, that, and everything else. So took the car to the drag strip last night, and the only reason I took the car to the drag strip was to collect data. I have put together a tune that is pretty much the car's last tune. What I did is I started mulling through a bunch of data logs, and I was looking at KPA, which is boost, basically. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to throw more fuel at it as the boost was coming in. I'm throwing more and more fuel at it as boost gets up to around that 10 or 11 pounds, which is the stock value. Keeping in mind that, you know, that's about it for my car. I mean, it's doing good to make 10 and a half, and in really good weather, it makes 11 pounds of boost. And so in looking at the data logs, what I did is I just threw fuel at it, a little bit more fuel at it at launch, which may hurt it a little bit, but I'd rather lose a quarter of a tenth than, you know, potentially have an issue with short-term knock, which leads me to the next issue. I had quite a few data logs with this summer blend fuel that, and keep in mind, guys, I am admittedly a little bit of a bitch when it comes to my knock sensor sensitivity. But again, the idea is to have something that, and the goal was to have a mid 10-second car no matter what the conditions were, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're still in that range of running 1050s and 1040s. But the thing is I was running into some short-term knock retard issues. I'm going, oh God, here we go with this. Okay, so I'm going to cure this with fueling, hopefully, is what was my thoughts anyway. And so I started ramping up fueling and got the car into a little bit safer zone. And after a few passes, car started to like it, and short-term knock retard basically more or less went to nil. There's still a little bit here and there, but it's false knock. And I just don't have it in me to numb up the knock sensors any further than what they are. I don't think that it's necessary. I haven't seen any reason for it, and out the back door, the car is trapping the best mile an hour that it's ever trapped, at least in these type of conditions. But what were the conditions, right? So in going back and looking at the time slips, and by the way, HRP, Houston Raceway Park does not have paper slips anymore. They've all gone to this electronic deal. It's an app. You have to have the app or you don't get a time slip. It's just the way that it works out. But the cool thing is that they have weather data. They've got the time of the pass. When you actually pull your time slip up, you can scroll over and get DA. There's a barometric pressure, the whole bit. It's actually pretty cool. Now, it's not without its flaws, but because you obviously have to have a phone and you don't have these records, your time slip records, which is kind of a bummer because that tangible time slip kind of means something. At least it does to me. But here's the trick: if you go back, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Maybe it was 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And look at the DA. The DA was more or less the same, hovering somewhere around 1,700 feet. But here's the twist. The humidity was significantly different. When I was running the car a couple of weeks ago, humidity was 65%. And for Southeast Texas rather, or Houston in general, that's a really low humidity number. So it was 80 degrees, between 80 and 83 degrees from the beginning of the night to the ending of the night. Obviously it was dropping just a little bit, but we didn't lose a lot of temperature. Last night, when I took the car to the drag strip, it was 95 to 97% humidity. So for you guys that count water grains, I'm going to say that grains were probably somewhere near all of them. Because if you start talking about humidity numbers that are like 95, 93, 97, basically mid 90% humidity, it kills power in these things. You would be better served running in 2,500 DA with 50% humidity than 1,700 foot DA running in 95% humidity. I know that because the cars run exactly the same times that it ran in at Mopar Fest. So what does that translate to? Well, it translates to a bunch of 1050 passes. Track prep was, it was okay, but I was just kind of easing into the car. I wasn't really light switching it. And in the instances where I did, it's kind of funny because the car just really wasn't making the power. It was short shifting most of the 1-2 shifts. Again, track prep wasn't that great. I was probably getting a little bit of haze. In fact, I was noticing on the 1-2 shift, I would get a solid bark out of the back tires on this thing. So that kind of gives you an idea as far as traction goes. And again, if this thing is hazing just a little bit, it'll short shift anyway. So, you take the good with the bad, and really the short shift thing doesn't affect the car's ET too much on that 1-2 shift. All the rest of the shifts were fine. But getting back to it, that short shift though will make about 1/2 tenth of a difference, at least somewhere in that range. Out the back door in those conditions, running 131.5-ish on average miles per hour. Started off the night when it was less humid at 93%. I was running 131 70s, 131.60, so almost 132 miles an hour. But as the humidity went up, it basically started to lose a little bit of mile an hour, but it never dropped under 131. It was always running in that 131.3, 131.2, 131.4 range. So again, just to give you an idea, everybody likes to talk about the DA thing, and I understand that 100%. But you've got to know what the grains are, or at least relative humidity for that area, to get a solid comparison. Again, DA for DA. Same DA, the car was running a little bit slower because of that higher humidity. Now let me catch up with you guys real quick. Let's see. Destroyer saying, hit the like, y'all. Absolutely. Let's see. Oh, Dollar Power saying, Mr. Mason, what's up, man? Some for our guys saying, anything AMG is my favorite non-American car. You know what? Here's the thing, man. I had an 09 E63 AMG M156 W211 car. I liked that car a lot. Here's the funny thing about that car, though. If I get out of that car and I sit in, or if I were to get out of that car and sit in a Charger, it's the same car. Like, everything is in the same spot anyway. But I really liked that car a lot. That was a cool car. But it just didn't have it was fast, but it didn't have that fun factor. My cord saying, Texas love, dog. I like it. The story's checking in with CFL. Sketchby saying, what up, Big Mason? What's up, man? Got the arm flex. I like it. Mark Q saying, hey, Mason and Chad, I don't know where everyone's from, but do you or anyone in the chat know of any places that can tune Mopar correctly near Chi-Town or surrounding states? No, but I can tell you that we've had guys ship cars to Texas from all over the United States over at Pikes. We had them coming from, obviously, anywhere in Texas, Chicago. We've had them from several from California. Quite a few from up north. So I'm not sure, but yeah, that's I wish I could help you out with that one. Somebody might be able to help you though. Ruben's saying, my Hellcat is at Overkill Performance in Sacramento. Josh says he uses Pikes Performance to tune the Hellcats. Yep, that is true. We are doing 309 diff and axles. I think I'm going to get a tune to help with my 10.0 goal. Oh yeah, you're going to need the tune for sure. Actually, here's the thing. To go 10.0, it doesn't take much with a stock car. You can do it on stock boost if you get some really good DA. I've gone 1016, 1017, and 1019 with this car. So it's gone 10 teens literally back to back to back, but it was really good air. But 309 gear, race gas tune, and a little bit of weight reduction on a drag pack in really good air will get you into that 10.0 range, no doubt about it. I know mine. If I were to put a race gas specific tune on mine, it would not have a problem running 10.0s and deep DAs. X-Cash is saying, you always have these chats when I'm in the middle of building something. I love it. The story's checking in with Scat Speed. See, Fireman's checking in saying, when you mod your Hellcat, how do you get your new horsepower to reflect on your SRT pages? How do you get your new horsepower to oh, I think I know what you're talking about. It depends on how you're modding the car. So the horsepower correlation, basically, it's calculated airflow and fuel. When you basically calculate airflow and AFR. In some cases, when you tune your car, you're changing certain parameters in there. You may be richening it up, you may have different injector data, or you may have a different VE table, which can sometimes screw up that horsepower number. So once you start throwing tunes at it, especially if you start throwing certain mods at the car, you know, pulleys, real big injectors, things like that, it can throw that number off, especially if you go with a camshaft. So it's not always, it's going to start to lose a little bit of that accuracy. Jay saying, almost done with long tube install on his 12 Charger RT, looking at tunes from Jay Green and Hemi Fever. Your opinion, other suggestions? Depends on which direction you're going to go with, but Jay Green does a good job. Hemi Fever does a good job. I know that Jay has got a lot of 6.4s and 5.7s under his belt. So if you're going to go the email route, that may be a good way for you to go. Scat Speed's checking in with Destroyer 1320. Mike Horn saying, 08 Super B, I have the built motor and trans to run 1,000 horsepower, and I want to do that, but also want to have a good street race setup. What should I do to get traction with that much horsepower, or can I even? Well, so here's the thing. It depends on what you're going to be doing with it. If you're making high speed runs with the car, yeah, there's a lot of guys that run with the stock stuff on well over 1,000 horsepower. Now, my opinion is I'd throw at least a set of BMR lower trailing arms on the thing. A little bit more of a beefy part, and you know, we've run them on Demons, I've run them on Red Eyes, I've run them on Hellcats. They tend to do pretty well, but that's mainly to help with how you're going to be hooking up. If you're going to be up around that number, though, if you're doing anything from a dig, I would probably do a 15-inch conversion, just straight up, because you're not going to be able to plant that power unless you've got enough meat in the back and enough of a wrinkle wall to be able to manage that type of power. So again, it just depends on what all you're going to be doing with the car, but I will say this, it's not that hard to get 1,000 horsepower to hook on the street, especially with these cars, provided that you've got the right wheel and tire setup. The other thing you can do in the tune is just to soften it up on the launch. That's another thing that you know, you can do, I guess. I mean, you'd be pulling some timing and, you know, playing with the driver command torque a little bit just to help it to be a little bit softer on the launch as you're rolling into wide open throttle. Also, you know, just slow your roll into the throttle down a little bit. Whenever I've run any of the big horsepower cars on the street, what I try to do is just, I try to get, I imagine there's an egg underneath my foot, but I've got to get my foot to the floor as fast as I can without blowing the egg up. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, there's a certain cadence to it. And you'll feel the car start to walk around a little bit if it starts to spin, but, you know, 15-inch conversion might be where you need to go with that. Ruben's asking, will my stock injectors be enough for my 10.0 goal? Yes, they will be. Hey, Fireman, thank you very much. Asking, what's the best street tire for Hellcats? I like the G2s and I like the Nitto Tri-5Rs. Those are the two best. In fact, my street setup for the Z06, the Lightning, the Hellcat, have all been Tri-5Rs. The Viper was Tri-5Rs. It basically, the Tri-5R does a couple of things. It safens the car up and it does well in the wet. Now, I'm not going to say take the thing out in monsoon. However, I've been caught on fairly fresh Tri-5Rs in very heavy rain up in the hill country. Didn't have any issues with them. I mean, you just drive the car like you would drive it in the rain, like you're not going to be wailing on it, and just be mindful of what you're working with. But they did pretty well. My understanding is that the G2s, I think, do a little bit better in the rain. I will tell you that the compound is softer, though. So Don't expect them to last as long as a set of Tri-5s. But that being said, I have heard some really good things about that tire, and I think from the factory they have a little bit deeper tread depth. So, but those are the tires that I like. And again, I ran that Lightning on Tri-5Rs for years. It was whenever I would drive the truck to work, that was my daily setup. So got caught in the rain a few times with that one too, didn't have any issues. Hey, Arthur's checking in saying, B Mason, what's up, brother? Listening while he's waxing the car. I like it. Keep it clean. I love it. Speaking of which, dude, I got to get on the mistress. She is filthy, dirty, nasty. I mean, dirty girl. Dirty girl's putting in some work last night, though. Oh, Ruben said, I also got the F1 interchiller to help the Sacramento heat. Nice. Those things are kind of cool to watch work because they will absolutely Arctic your intercooler temps. Alex, oh, cool. Saying, what's up, B? I got some footage from my T6 flight a couple of weeks ago. Would appreciate it if you checked it out. Let me know what you think. Hell yeah, I want to check that out. Yeah, T6s are fun. Let's see. The only thing that I couldn't make a T6 do, this is the T6 Texan piston trainer. The only thing I couldn't get that thing to do, and the lady that was my instructor was real patient with me, but I just could not nail a cubanate. But fun playing, kind of slow to react, but watt that thing and see, I forget, what was it, 40 inches of manifold? It's been a while, I can't remember. I think it's what my target was 40. Kept kicking it up a little bit. She had that thing hot rod a little bit too, but those were fun planes. Alex is also asking, where would one go to learn how to tune Mopar? Give Alex Pikes a shout. It's not cheap, but it's what he did. It's what he does for HP is he teaches people how to tune. I would probably go that route. Take a look at that and see if there's any way that you can get into one of his classes, or if he's got any classes coming up. I don't know what he's got going on with that anymore, but that would be where I would go. You need to learn Mopar specific tuning, mainly because these things are just a little bit different. They don't follow the trend of any wedge motor that you've ever been around. We're talking 5-liter stuff, the 2-valve overhead cam stuff, and obviously LS. They don't act the way that those engines do, and because of that, guys start to get a little bit frustrated because they're not dragging a bunch of power out of these cars, when in reality, the only power that you really get out of these things is really more in tuning. Some spark modifiers as well, but primarily transmission tuning. Just a few nips and tucks here and there with the transmission tuning can make a big difference. So just know that coming into it. Mike Horn is asking. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Hey, Scat Speed. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Got Mopar muscle. I love it. Do my Hulk pose. God, speaking of which, man, I've been hitting it mercilessly. Between 6 and 6:30, getting into the gym. Speed bag, heavy bag, rope drills, heavy bag. There's 2 different heavy bags that I'm working with. They got a newer one that's hard as a brick, but anyway, trying to get into it. And then they say, oh, well, we got this new quarantine thing, but I got to key to the gym so I can still work. But thank you very much. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. Mike Horn saying, thoughts on water-meth injection. Running a Pro Charger with 10 to 14 PSI, I've been told water-meth kits are not very reliable. Well, let's break that down a little bit, because we need to unpack, I hate that phrase, but we need to unpack that statement. Meth kits are very reliable. Snow Performance puts a kit together that's awesome. I mean, you can run it off of injector duty cycle, which is what we like to do. You can run it off of boost. You can run it off of a lot of different things. Although with a positive displacement supercharger, it's not a good idea to run it on boost, because you can go into boost kind of early with these things, and you can be fogging the living crap out of it with water-meth at too low of an RPM. So that's why injector duty cycle is really more what you want to do with positive displacement, but you don't have positive displacement, so that point is positively pointless. Anyway, Here's what I don't like about Water-meth. It's a distribution issue, especially because you've got a centrifugal style supercharger. When you are blowing into that intake manifold, there's going to be some cylinders that are going to get hit with a lot of Water-meth. There's going to be some that don't get hit with much at all. And then you're going to have kind of some distribution somewhere in between. And my issue is that I don't necessarily like Water-meth injection all that much. I would prefer to see the car on something like E85, which kind of sort of does the same thing for you, just because of the sheer volume of fuel that you have. 30% more fuel absorbs more heat. So that's one of the reasons why E85 is so awesome for boosted cars. But, and this is a pretty significant point. If you start getting distribution issues, you need to, let me kind of go to a full stop here. What are you going to be using the Water-meth for? Are you going to be tuning the car on Water-meth, using the Water-meth as your octane gain? If that's the case, I highly suggest trying some other ideas, because, again, the distribution issue, if you're tuning for a specific air-fuel ratio, basically specific lambda, and let's say you're hovering, let's say, okay, I want, 0.79 lambda, or I want, 0.80 lambda, and you're getting there on the button, or in this case, through your progressive controller. A couple of things can happen. One is you're going to have a distribution issue, and AFR is not going to be the same, so you're going to have leaning cylinders and potentially over-rich cylinders. Second thing, keep that thing full of boost juice, because here's the deal. You run out of that stuff and you're relying on your meth kit to supply all of your octane, and that's how you melt one of these things down. I've seen it happen. Now, normally there's warnings and things like that that'll start to go off and whatever. Don't want to rely on a warning light that could potentially fail, not let me know that the levels are down, and then boom. So I've never been a big proponent of any kind of water. Just got done wrenching in the packs, praying to baby Jesus all the little gremlins are gone. Just curious, what kind of times have you seen in 392 Challengers with 6 speeds stock cam? So Sean E is a good example of this. I can't remember what he was running with his car, but I can tell you that 11s are tough to come by with those things. The biggest issue is just launching the thing. But that being said, 1180s, 1170s are some of the faster cars that I've seen with the stock cam, but that's also with weight reduction. I did not drive those cars, so I can't tell you how much weight reduction or everything else that was done. Sean, he is checking in already. But Sean can answer that question. If you scroll down, he probably has already told you. And Sean, to be honest with you, had probably one of the faster manual transmission cars, considering, stock cam, drag pack. So he'll have to sort you out. But once you start getting away from stock manifolds, cat deletes, or stock cats, long tubes really doesn't make that big of a difference. And it's just it can become frustrating. Frustrating enough to make folks want to get a Hellcat. But I wouldn't recommend a manual Hellcat. Scat Speed, thank you again, buddy. I appreciate it. Ruben's saying, yeah, and it arced in my wallet. Johnny said, how does density altitude affect boost on a stock and modeling modified Hellcat? Sean saying, when it's very cold, I can make 14 pounds of boost. When it's hot, it's around 12. Maybe there's a formula or something. I'm sure that there is, but the reality is that in really hot weather, you're going to be down, for every 1,000 feet, you're down 3%. So, look at it from that point of view. I mean, if you go from a 3,000 foot day to a 0 day, you're going to lose about 10% of the boost just coming into that conversation. So if you're making 10 pounds of boost, you're going to lose at least 1 pound of boost in that transition. So the same is going to kind of fall in suit. If you're making 14, you lose 3,000 feet. it's roughly 9%, you know, you're going to lose at least a pound, if a pound and a half of boost. So, you know, just figure that into the equation. Think more in percentages per 1,000 feet than boost numbers. Demonology checking in. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much. Got Demonology in now. Everybody say hello to him. Jazz Hellcat saying, how are tuners not setting the P1400 code now? I don't know, because everyone I've seen's got a P1400. Do not know on that one. Somebody's saying, what is a good method of getting the intercooler coolant as cool as possible between runs? Well, everybody's got their own ideas on this. One thing you can do is you can get yourself a taser, run the fans, run the pump, try to drag the power down that way. Other guys have, you know, packed bags of ice around the reservoir. Other guys have gone a completely different route and gone with ice tanks in the back. You know, it depends on how much boost you're making, how much discharge heat you're looking at. You know, it adds weight, but you can definitely make up for that with a little bit of power that you're going to pick up. And then you've got inner chillers and the Kincaid kits. Basically, they're going to use the AC system. And if you're going to do it, I like the killer chiller, which is the Kincaid. I like the base model Kincaid kit, the one without the valves and all the other nonsensical stuff. You don't need it. The best thing you can do if you're going to go that route is just know that coming into it, the kits aren't expensive. Installing them can be a major pain, and it might be a little bit easier just to hit the thing with some ice and with the fans. That is typically going to be good enough. Here's the thing though, dumping a whole lot of temperature out of that system is great, but you're really looking to try to get it as low as possible. And the only real way to do that is going to be with one of the killer chillers or inner chillers. It's kind of like the same system that the Demons and the Red Eyes come with now. They're not as effective as the Kincaid kit or the inner chiller, but they come with the car. And, you know, does it help? Yeah, it helps a little bit. But for me, I mean, it depends. And the other thing is depends on what the ambient temperature is. You know, once ambient drops below, say, 65 degrees, any killer chiller, inner chiller, or anything like that isn't really going to give you a whole lot of lift, so to speak. You're not going to get a whole lot out of it. If you're working with, say, 90 degree weather and you can drop that temperature down, you'll pick up some power, but it's not like you're going to be picking up a boatload. And, you know, we've done some testing with these kits, and the biggest thing that I liked about the kit was getting the temperatures down to around 60 degrees, 65 degrees, helped the car with consistency. That was the main thing, especially if you're trying to hot lap them. So anyway, hopefully that helps. There's different methods you can use, but for sure, best thing you can do is just let it cool down, have the fans on it, and go from there. Shawnee's saying taser boosted him, of course. Boosted him saying, Sean, I have a taser. Is there a good way to use ice? Yeah, there is. What you can do is you can run it in just the pump mode and pack ice around that reservoir, and that can help. You know, you'll see it as it, you know, you'll see the reservoir levels kick up and down as it's circulating. Another thing that you can do is you can wrap those lines in heat protectant. I haven't done anything like that with my car, but there's some little things you can do along the way that'll help to mitigate it just a little bit. But you know what? Every little bit helps. And so, you know, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a bad idea to go that route. I would probably say, though, that, you know, don't rely too much on that, on lowering that temperature to really gain a lot of ET. Because keep in mind that by the time you're at about half track, you will have basically consumed every ounce of what that killer chiller or inner chiller would have to offer to you. In other words, it's going to heat that water up really quickly. So where it helps is on the launch, really through about fourth gear. After that, again, especially if you've got, pulleys, double pulley system, yeah, you're going to heat that water up real quick. There's just not enough, there's not enough capacity there, realistically. Larger capacity intercoolers and stuff like that aren't really going to help you either if you're drag racing or just trying to get a number out of the car. So, proven that already. But, kind of answers that question. Let's see. Sean, thank you very much. I'll race again when DA is under 500 feet. Me? Well, I like going to the track. I like getting data. I like trying to find out what really works in the real world versus, what folks like to say on internets and stuff like that. So, I've kind of got a thing right now where I almost want to try to test one of these JLT intakes just to see what it acts like in the heat. It's one thing if it's going to be of any kind of service to you when the weather is cold, but the weird thing about it is, the weird question about it is this cold air kit going to do you any favors when you need it to do you favors? And so far as I can tell, it's like, sort of, maybe. But I don't know. That's about the only thing that I can think of that would really get me to the drag strip again anytime real soon. Only because, I'm out looking for data. I'm really more interested in seeing how my car is affected by heat, running it a little bit richer, a little bit sooner, and basically just leaving parameters where they are. And also, too, with the understanding that the car has already met its goals. And if I'm going to run, a 1050 in 100%, or not, for practical conversation purposes, and 95% humidity, and it's going to go 40s in the same DA, but at 65% humidity, I'm looking at 3, 6%. I've got a 6 or 7% power delta based on where I'm at now versus, like, say, for example, the track realm. So, what will the car run? Well, so far it's running a little bit quicker in the same DA versus how it ran last year. Certainly it's running faster in the mile per hour. So I'm going to probably, it'll be a safe assumption that coming into this year, it's going to be maxed out on 93 octane, and that'll be it. I'm not going to mess with any race gas tunes or anything like that. The goal is to maintain and to beat that 10-10, try to get a 10-0 out of it on 93 octane, and let's see if we can make it happen. It's going to be tough, but I think we can do it. Damn, Boosted Hemi, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it means a lot to me, bro. Thank you very much. It goes into the tire fund, as a matter of fact. I will be your contribution dollars at work. So Monday, I will be ordering not only the brake lines for the truck, which, by the way, I've already popped all the fittings and they're all good. But I'll also be ordering another street setup for the car, and I'm thinking about going with the G2s this time. So I will keep you guys posted. I'll give you a review of the tires, let you know what I think. Probably won't do any drag testing with them because I've got the drag pack for the drag strip, and this time of year, track prep is going to be awesome. And it's going to be as good as it can get, but with this type of humidity and everything else, it's just going to be a tough go of it, so to speak. So, but I will be trying them out on the street, and I think that's the route I'm going to go this time. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, hang on. Sean, okay, getting back to it. Sean saying, I do put ice on top of my engine on Hellcat between runs, and not everybody does it, but I do. Oh, and he pulls off the engine covers. Yeah, mine. I haven't had my engine covers on my car since the day I got it. Oh, and then Sean's saying 12.2 at 114 on his on his 6-speed Scat Pack, and he had a pretty well sorted Scat Pack too. So that will give you an idea as far as where that car falls in line. And to give you guys an idea, you know, so he's running a 12.2. The automatic cars in good air, I mean, will accidentally run an 1190 bone stock on a tire. And with a tune and a couple of other goodies, I mean, I was running 1130s in a full weight on 20s on the stock SRT wheels, SRT on drag radials. So that's the difference between that automatic and that manual. Mike saying, thanks for answering my Water-meth question earlier. I'm going to run E85. I have an air-to-air intercooler also. Hopefully that will be good enough. That'll be fine. Yeah, don't, and this is the other thing when it comes to Mopars. The idea with Mopars is to not go outside of the recipe. If you can manage staying within the scope and the view of what works for Mopar, don't try to get too far outside of that, you'll be just fine. And again, in this situation, the E85 is going to be the thing that you'll notice does the most for you. And go with the injected engineering pumps. Go with the, you know, a set of either FIC or Fuel One, 1000cc injectors, something along those lines. You'll be in pretty good shape with that. And, you know, keep this in mind. You know, E85 allows you to do a few pretty cool things, which is, you know, throw more boost at it. It's more consistent. You get kind of an inherent, you know, cooling of the charge. But I will remind you, if you're going to be going E85, your new oil change intervals just went from 6,000 if you're just playing around with it on the street to 3,000 miles. So that's just part of E85 ownership. But it'll be a lot of fun. You'll like it. Oh, Alex saying, yeah, this T6, the T6 Texan 2 had the Pratt & Whitney PT6, had the turboprop. Oh, okay. Makes 1,100 horsepower. G limits are -3.5 to 7. We pulled a max of 5 on my flight. Super fun. Didn't puke. So this one wasn't a Texan 2. This was the original Texan. Can't remember the engine. It's radial though. You know, we didn't hit any really hard G's. I think we might have hit 4, you know, just playing around with it. But they're a lot of fun. I love doing that kind of stuff. Alex saying, I really sympathize with the quarantine weight gain. Yeah, quarantine 15 is a real thing. Yeah, and, you know, once everything opened back up, I made sure that I, you know, had keys made and everything else. And, you know, if I just have to sneak over there, then I will if they're going to try to shut things down. But I get a little bit shitty to be around if I haven't been in the gym. So, let's see. Shawnee's asking, does a JLT pull air from the fender or is it open element? It's an open element. JLTs are on back order for 3 to 4 weeks. I ordered mine yesterday. Oh, no shit. Well, like I say, I might get one for testing. I got to get tires first. I got to get the street set up, kind of taken care of, because we're talking about rolling on some ball tires that look like my head. Edward's saying, Shawnee, that's what I was thinking. I've got an aggressive tune, cold air intake, catch can, long tubes, high flow cats, and full course exhaust. Remove clutch delay valve, smart thing. BMR rear trailing arms, and a tire. It's a fun car. Don't get me wrong. And I would never knock it in this day and age, man. Listen, I mean, we're living in a day and age where, you know, 11s are the new 13s, right? So, you know, you don't want to consider the car slow if it doesn't run 11s. It's a fast car no matter what. They're a lot of fun too. Let's see. Oh, Sean had underdrives on his, what he was telling Ed. Let's see. Oh, Ed was saying go the Barton shifter and maybe Demon Killer coil springs. That might actually work well on that manual car. Let's see. Oh, here you go. Sinister said, mounted the Tri-5R2s on the red eye today. They look very nice on the street. So I've been hearing some really good things about them. A buddy of mine, Robert's got them on his. It's a 285 car, good air to run, 990s, 980s. Here's the thing. He said that it hooks up great, and I can't wait to put that to the test because I'd like to have a set of street tires that I can actually have fun with this car. So we shall see. Oh, Shawnee's got his Barton up for sale. It's a good shifter. I like Barton. In fact, I had gotten pipes set up with Barton when I was there. Good stuff. Kevin McDavid saying, I run my red eye with plastic cowl trim. A big gap removed made a huge difference in IAT. Sounds good too. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's the whole idea. Really, for me, it's more just about the theater of the thing. I just want to be able to hear the blower. I'm, in a lot of ways, I mean, not for nothing. I mean, I'm still playing with the tunes. I'm still getting the data. I'm finding out, just how much does humidity affect a Hellcat? Just how much does DA affect it? Things like that, fueling and, if I pull fuel a little bit here, if I blend in fuel or, what AFR does the car like, things like that. That's really what I'm playing with more than anything else. And I'm doing it in a way that makes the car not only safe, but fun. And there's a level of confidence there that, you're not trying to overreach or overextend the focus and the kind of the rules of the game when you're playing with Mopar, which is, again, something that is difficult for a lot of guys to comprehend. And I'll be honest with you, it kind of sucks when you run up against, one of these things. I mean, this is something that's happened on a few occasions where guys have taken their cars, gotten them tuned, and little Mistress Revlon walks all over them. Like, puts a 10th on red eyes that should have been quicker. There's a lot of stuff that you don't want to say, but you want to say, or at least you can't say, but you want to say to some of these guys, where you go out of your mind because you've already talked to them about where to take your car, what to avoid, what to go with. And it's not like the advice is, it's not like the advice is saying, you need to buy this, buy that, go with this guy, make sure you buy 3 of those, and you need to buy this, and you need to buy. Most of the time it's, don't buy this, don't get suckered into that, stay away from this, take that money and go buy a hot dog or whatever. That's really, it's funny with these Mopars because the advice, the right advice, is typically telling you to not do stuff to the cars. At least not in piecemeal form. Cold air intakes are kind of neat and they kind of work. I mean, you've really got to start making a lot of power for a cold air intake to do anything for a Hellcat. And when I say making a lot of power, I'm talking about a minimum of 750 to the wheels, maybe even 800, because I mean, we've run cars on the dyno, or I had run cars on the dyno with long tubes, JLT intake, factory intake. I've just leaving it there, okay, just full stop, leaving it there. The difference was like within the noise of the dyno. I mean, it would be like asking, okay, well, is a 1% difference even a measurable thing? I mean, on different days, but more or less within the same week or two. I mean, 1%? I don't know. But again, I mean, the way that I look at it is really more in terms of percentage amounts, not really in terms of, did it pick up X amount of power? Because here's another funny thing. I mean, I've seen cars making 900 horsepower in the rear wheels with a stock intake system, but it didn't sound as good. You know what I mean? So, if you lost, what is the equivalent? Let's say you lost 5 horsepower across the board, 5 horsepower in, 5 foot-pounds of torque. But you got to play with it. Would you even know that 5 horsepower or 5 foot-pounds of torque had left the building when you're already making 600, 650, 700 horsepower in the rear wheels? No, you'd never know it, but it adds theater to it. So for that, I'd probably say it's worth it. Let's see. Oh, Sean's saying that pulleys made about 6 to 8 horsepower and maybe 6 to 8 foot-pounds of torque. The 392 is a bit of a Hemi-tax nightmare, but every little bit helps. Very true on that. K. Anthony's asking, what was done to your 6.4 to go 11.3 full weight? Well, number one, I was running in really good air. I think the density altitude was like minus 1,200, which, that's the game that we're playing, let's be honest, man. You get the guys over at ATCO and they're going, oh my God, I ran this number. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, they're dealing with, minus 2,000 DAs, all right? So anyway, let's say minus 1,200 DA. Had a Pikes Performance tune on it, had my own revisions on that tune just to make it a bit more aggressive, mainly in some spark modifier areas. Had my transmission tune on it, stock manifolds. It had so the intake manifold was cleaned up. It was not ported. I just got some of the casting flash out of it. Let's see, what else? Stock throttle body, Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter, and a Mopar. No, it did not have a rear seat delete in the car. Not at that point. I was running on SRT wheels, stock fronts with 305, 35, 20s in the rear. Those are Nitto Tri-5Rs. And is that it? Yeah, that's it. That's all that was done to the car. Very little was done to that car, as a matter of fact. To give you an idea, that car was, when 1130s that day, that car was an 1150, 1160 car, basically an 1160 car in most weather. And really crappy weather, it might have run a high 60. But for the most part, it was going to run 1150s and 1160s pretty much like clockwork. Let's see. Oh, K. Anthony's saying, Shawnee's saying, I got an extra 20 pounds I'm carrying around, dude. Yeah. Actually, I've cut a little bit of weight. I've been able to cut about 10 pounds. And again, it's just every morning, 6:30 at the latest, I'm working heavy bag, working speed bag, mainly a lot of been doing a lot of footwork stuff. I mean, just trying to stay as active as I possibly can and doing something that's engaging and something that's fun for me to do. Not wailing on anything. You never on a heavy bag want to be wailing on anything. You blast your shoulder completely out if you do that. Rookie mistakes. Easy to see who's a rookie. They're the ones that are beating the living crap out of a sandbag. But at least if they're not working on combos. But just, I don't know. I've been trying to stick to it, but my diet's been pretty much on point, but every once in a while, like today was a bit of a cheat day. Got me a little sunburger. It was some good stuff. Can't you say, besides we saw on the channel, so it's the same stuff that's on the channel is what was done. In fact, that car is probably, and the brake duct mod was the other thing that I did to the car. That car is probably the most documented Challenger that is out there in terms of ETs, what was done to the car, getting it down the drag strip. There really wasn't any true weight reduction. So, I don't know. That's what you saw on the channel is what was actually done. Shawnee on his car is saying that ported throttle body added a little bit of power. Now, here's the thing. After I ran the 1130, that was several years ago. So after I ran the 1130, kind of went back to the drawing board with that car with the tune, put a different tune on it, a little bit more aggressive on spark modifiers, hemmed up the trans tune a little bit, did the drag pack setup, and with that setup, that car was, basically shaved about a 1/10 off of it, so it was in the 50s more often than not, and in pretty okay air, it was an 1140 car. And so here's the funny thing. Had I not picked up the Hellcat last fall, we were shooting for 10s with that thing with the stock cam. So, and it would have gotten it. I can practically guarantee that. So, yeah. But again, that's kind of what we were shooting for, but something came up and there's that something right there. Smoke05 saying, hey B, watching your old SRT videos, you mentioned playing with torque management, but recently I've heard you say leave torque management alone. Did you learn it's not safe to make shifts harsher? The thing is that it didn't make enough of a difference to justify it. And the other thing is that the torque management here, okay, so you have to understand that in torque management, there's a lot of different parameters in torque management that you can play with. It's not just a single on or off. It's not binary like that. So there are external torque management, internal torque management, and within those tables, you've got several different things that you can change. What I would suggest is, number one, you've got to leave external torque management 100% in effect. That's your transmission torque management. But here's the funny thing, and I mean, that is a non sequitur, non-starter. You do not ever take that off. That's what will end up hurting a transmission, and it's not going to happen immediately, and it might not happen for a year or two. But the problem is that at some point, transmission is going to start to get stung a little bit. I should know. So there's that to consider. But when I've done the testing, so what I did is at the track, this was maybe 2 years ago, I took that car on a drag pack and had torque management 100% on. I had started to numb up torque management to the point where I had removed it all completely. And here's the reason why I did that. A lot of the original tunes for the Mopars, like the Diablo can tunes, wiped out torque management completely. And that had potentially caused some issues. But I wanted to see if there was any real performance gain. And the problem, if I remember correctly, I know I've mentioned it several times. I can't remember if I actually did a true, I don't think I did a true video on this. Anyway, I think it might have been 1/2 And the pass that had the fastest mile per hour in ET was the torque management off 100%. But it was like within 100th or 200ths of a second of only having external on and everything else off. So, happy medium. The idea is that you want the car to pull timing between shifts. That's the big thing. If the car's not pulling timing between shifts, that's what can burn up the clutches, or it can at least hit the clutches a little bit too hard. But pulling the timing helps the transmission to shift, actually helps the car go a little bit faster. I'll also say that the 60-foot time, though, I think I may have shallow staged the car a little bit on the pass that I ran full, basically everything off. So it may have worked out to where having external on by itself would probably be the faster pass. But again, that's where testing and real world testing, it has validity, but you have to remember that there's a little bit of wiggle room that you have to work with that. So because the number was just so close, I would never say kill torque management altogether. I would say mitigate it, but just know that with all the testing I've done on the SRT, that's what ended up working out with that car. Now, with the Hellcat, the car didn't like turning off all of the torque management at all. Car got slower for whatever reason. It could have been track prep, could have been anything. But this thing, I leave it external. I may have a couple of internals on too. I'm just running external with this one and it seems to be fine. It's still a little bit on the iffy side, but it's far and away less iffy than turning everything off. I've run it with all torque management and then with external only, and it's just not that big of a difference. That's the other thing too. We've tested it not only with my car, but with other cars with full torque management on, and there just wasn't enough of a difference between the two to really gauge a difference. So hopefully that answers the question. There's just, when you start to nth degree it, all of it on the same night, and you don't see that much of a difference, it's better to err on the side of caution. And you got to remember, these cars are, number one, they're heavy. Number two, doesn't matter if it's a 392 or a Hellcat, they're making a lot of horsepower. To move that much weight, you need to help that transmission out a little bit. In a lighter car, maybe it doesn't make as much of a difference, but for something this heavy, probably worth it. Sean's saying, I had to run a drag pack and about 460 at the wheels on a dyno jet to run 11s with my 6-speed 392 Challenger. At least $100 per horsepower. That's a like minimum. For Mopars, it's usually more like $150. Mike's saying, best nitrous kit plate setup for the 6.1. Any tips, experiences with are appreciated. Thanks, man. No problem. So, nitrous works. I cannot remember the freaking part number. I used to know this off the top of my head. I think it ends in 10. Oh, this sucks. Anyway, Nitrous Works makes a great kit. Again, it runs off of injector duty cycle. Fully programmable kit. And you can run safely with that kit, I would say 125 shot on a 6.1. Not have any issues with it all day long. It's got every safety bell and whistle out there. So, if you're going to run a separate fuel system, which I highly recommend, by the way, you can run low fuel pressure. You can run low bottle pressure cutoffs. If you're going to run that type of setup, you can run it on injector duty cycle, where when your stock injectors hit, say, 70% duty cycle, it'll start to feed in the nitrous progressively. Actually, you probably want to hit it at about 50%. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm failing you in that I can't remember the part number, but Nitrous Works would be the way that I would go. They got a great kit for your switch panels. It's just a really good way to go. And again, a lot of guys will run a separate fuel system with a separate pump, ensuring that you're not taxing or doing anything with the stock fuel system to try to get you to a certain area. It sounds a little bit more tedious, but once it's done, it really does make sense, because when you're on the dope, you can have, like, say you go somewhere and get a can of like 260 GT, like, which is a true 100 octane fuel. You can go 104 in your separate fuel cell, like a separate 4 gallon or 2 gallon or 3 gallon fuel cell. You can run race gas in that kit. You don't have to run E85, because E85 will actually kind of screw with the jets, and it won't do any good because you'll be dumping a lot of E85 into it. And you don't need cooling, because that's what the nitrous does. Although I will say that it could help you run maybe a little bit more timing, but again, don't try to get greedy with nitrous. Just do it and have fun. But that's what I would do if it were mine. So, I'd say maybe in the trunk, get, 4 gallon cell for a standalone Nitrous Works kit, hang it at around, 125 horse. I think you'd be good. I mean, window switch it from 3,000 RPM to 6,100 RPM. I mean, again, that's just it's a good, solid, reliable system. Oh, and don't forget to change your solenoids once a year. That is mandatory. That is part of the cost of owning a nitrous kit. You can call me nutty. You can call me a little bitch about swapping out solenoids, but I'll tell you this: better to swap them out and have fresh ones in there than to go to hit your spray and, well, your fuel doesn't fire or your nitrous doesn't fire. Either way, it can blow your motor up. So, word to the wise. I've actually had, on the dyno, I've had nitrous solenoids fail and had cars go straight to like 9-to-1 AFR. And you're watching this thing and you go, oh shit. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Thought that I blew one of them up. Let's see, Shawnee is saying 12:30. Alex saying, did you have a cam, Sean? No, Sean did not have a cam. Sean saying, I wanted to run 11s with a stock cam 6-speed, just missed it, gave up and bought a Hellcat 8-speed. Well, a lot of guys do. Imagine that. Catalyst is saying, question about drag racing. Why do drag racers put those net things up in their window? Drag racers will put a net up because at certain mile per hours and certain ETs, if you get into a wreck and get jostled, you don't want your arms or your head or anything like that getting sent outside of the vehicle. So that net will catch anything from going outside, because when you roll or when you flip that thing, the G-forces go from at some point negative, like negative 2 Gs, if you're just kind of hovering there and just barely kind of turning. So it's pulling you up and out at about 2 Gs, but once you start flipping and rolling, it can get to negative 4, 5, 6, 7 Gs, and you can't physically, you can't physically, cross up and grab your harness. If you haven't crossed up and grabbed your harness at that point, you got, wiggle hands going everywhere. If that thing goes outside of the car, you ain't coming back with 2 arms at that point. So that's why. Ed is saying, I was actually looking at an 8 cats until this broke a valve spring. Last dyno pull, it hit 457. It's a 13 SRT. I pulled out the rear seat and subs, didn't know the difference between a 13 and a 15. Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference there. You got a nag one, but still a good car though. Shawnee's saying, be most fun on the street. 392 6-speed, 392 8-speed, stock Hellcat 6-speed, stock Hellcat 8-speed. You've driven all of these. I've driven a lot of all of those. Most fun on the street. Okay, so one of the most fun on the street would be like a 12, 13, 14, 392 car with a nag 1 and a 370 gear. That car is a lot of fun to drive. Another very fun car, 392 with a 6-speed. Y'all know that one of my favorite cars at the shop was just this little 14 392 6-speed car. Bone stock, we ended up putting a Pro Charger on it. Went from making, the earlier cars didn't make quite as much power as the 15 and up cars, but I think it made like 385, 395 with the rear wheels, something like that. And it ended up making 535 to the rear wheels. But before the blower went on that thing, that car was such a little riot to drive. I just really liked driving that car. I would say that I will say that would be my favorite in short doses, just because they're fun. A Hellcat automatic would probably come in second, only because the power is a little bit less usable. And let's face it, if you're just out to have a good time, manuals are just more fun inherently to drive, except for the Hellcat. The Hellcat needs more gear, needs better transmission ratios, because it is a bit of a dog to drive down low. So, but anything with a 392 is going to be fun. Let's see. Jamie's asking, do you think the brake duct mod did anything on your old Challenger? I don't know. I mean, the car, nobody's touched the times that I've run in that car with an SRT. I mean, not with just the nothing amount of mods that I've done to it. So I will say that every little bit helps. How much did it help? Who knows? Hard to say. But, the car was a solid mid 11-second car. So, it's working in concert with everything else, that's for sure. Ken's asking, have you adjusted your cam timing in your tune? No, I have not. Doc Dip is in saying, what up, Bean? We are joining on the road. Jared and I heading to pick up the dyno. Coming into Arizona now. What's the topic? By the way, I'm not driving currently. Then he goes, sorry, I just read the topic. Service is choppy, so not sure how long I'll be in. Yeah, give me a holler on Monday or tomorrow or whenever. I'll give you the latest updates. If you want, you can pull this video back up and catch the latest on the WTF moments with the truck, with the brakes. Had the right rear brake line basically hemorrhage. And so I will have to order up the rear brake line, because now instead of the front puking, it's the rear. But I guess Sierra loves me because she's doing all of this in the driveway. Thank God. So she's taking care of me. But I just got to get all that stuff taken care of. But we got to get that thing to the, we got to get that thing to your shop ASAP, my friend. Ruben's saying, is your trans tune file available at Pikes Performance? No, Alex can tune your trans probably better than me. But no, my trans file is floating around on one of the old laptops floating around here somewhere. And by the way, I wouldn't say swap files. That's one thing that Mopar, if you learn how to speak fluent Mopar, you'll learn that swapping files is typically not always the best thing to do. Mainly because, well, every Mopar is a snowflake. They're all a little bit different, and that trans profile or that engine tune may or may not work well with your car, especially in your environment, depending on track prep and everything else. So it's a little bit more of a specific way to go about tuning, although I will say this, it will work like a charm. But Alex will get you squared away. Let's see. Shawnee saying, on a cool day, how's the drivability on your carbureted 400? We were pretty darn spoiled these days with fuel injection. I can barely remember the last carburetor I had. Well, haven't had a chance really to drive the thing in cool weather. You know, the transmission is shot, so I can't roll into the throttle too much. But that 400, it doesn't really care. I mean, if I'm just burbling along in it, it just kind of burbles along, and it doesn't really do anything that's going to be unpredictable. Although it did light the tires up one time, which I thought was kind of fun. But drivability is fine. The only issue that I have is the modern gasoline, where you're going to run into, well, vapor lock, you know, and that's the biggest issue right now, is just dealing with vapor lock with that truck. But, well, aside from brakes, that's actually the pretty freaking big issue, as a matter of fact. Himiad saying, hey B, through the 392 under decision trades for, I've been through the 392 under decision trades for more power, have eliminated all except for tuning. It runs high 11s with STK tune with tri-5s and 85 millimeter throttle body in about 700 DA. Should I tune or leave it stock? I tell you what. Let's see. Let me look at something real quick. Oh, high 11s with stock tune. You know, yeah, it depends on who does the tune. Okay, if it's one of Alex's tunes, I say go for it. 93 octane, you're already in the 11s. Pick up maybe a tenth or so. Get some trans tuning if it's an automatic. Like I say, my car was running 1160s, 1170s. Certainly 80s, without even batting an eyelash, with basically what you got going on with your car. In roughly the same DA. I mean, it was, you know, at there towards the end, she was running 50s and 40s in those DAs. So I would say that, yeah, I mean, if you're going with the right person, then yeah, the tuning makes sense. But if I'm being honest, you're going to be having a lot of fun with the thing the way it sits right now. I mean, unless you are just dead set on engine and trans tuning, because that's not a cheap proposition, mind you, hold what you got for now. You know, I'd rather see you take that money and put it into tires, drag pack, stuff like that, than a tune straight away. Because you got to remember that the tuning costs a lot of money. You got credits that you got to buy. You've got credits for the transmission and credits for the engine. And you can't just use the same, you know, the same window, so to speak. It doesn't run both the engine and transmission. You have to get credits for both. It gets a little pricey. Plus, transmission tuning, to be real honest with you, trans tuning is highly subjective. So, you know, partial throttle. You might like your car to shift a little bit earlier, a little bit more laid back. Other guys like their cars to be very aggressive. It just depends. And so because of that, you can get a lot of back and forth. If you like the way the car runs now, again, hold what you got. Let's see how she runs this fall. Drag pack, everything else considered, and then I would throw a tune on and let her eat. Let's see. Anthony is asking, are you a fan of more gear with nag ones in 1/8 and quarter mile situations? Yeah, I like the 370 gear. I've driven, so one of the cars was a 426 with a 390 gear. That one was a little ruckus, to say the least. But a 370 gear, again, it's not cheap, by the way, but a 370 gear with a nag one and a 392 is kind of a fun car because you get a 370 gear, which is a bit more traditional. If you've got a nag one and it's a 5-speed automatic, you've got some traditional, and what I mean by traditional is first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. They're more along the lines of an old school setup as opposed to like the 417 first gear that's in these things. It's real aggressive setups. And because it's a bit more traditional, that 370 gear just kind of works well in that suit, so to speak. In fact, I've even gone so far as to say this: one of my favorite combinations that I would love to put together would be 5.7 nag one with the 370 gear, long tubes, full exhaust, clean up the intake manifold, and hit it with about $1.50 of nitrous. I just think that would be a freaking riot to drive. Obviously, cam would have to be a part of that too. I'd put one of my cams in it, but that to me would just reek of being a blast. So anyway, I digress. Let's see. Alex is saying, is there any practical use in changing out the 309 rear in the A8 392s? There's some debate on that. It's a good question. So early on, there were guys that were running 370 gears in those cars, and I think they ran into some limited success with them. But the only downside is that they were a little bit shitty on the street. And what I mean by that is you've got a 417 first gear with a 370 gear. If you're talking about just playing around with a car on the street, first gear then becomes practically useless. I mean, you can launch it in second gear, but I mean, let's be honest, there's just the playing around factor kind of gets slapped around a little bit. So whatever minor success that gear may have gotten somebody, and then we're talking somebody would have to have a drag pack, lighter weight setup, the whole bit to really get the most out of it. I mean, I never swapped out the gear and went with just the 309, stayed with just the 309 that came with the car. Now, that being said, I also knew a guy that swore by that gear. Now, I had driven one of the cars that had that gear in it, and I could kind of attest to the fact that unless he was running a drag setup, like 17s in the back, with ET Street R's, that it just was kind of a useless, I don't know, the car just didn't drive the way you would think it would. So it would burn through gears pretty quickly. The other thing too, running that much gear with an A8, you've got to change driver command torque because the car, it's kind of like putting a 309 in a Hellcat. The car just doesn't have anything to push against, so to speak. So really, the car can feel a little bit softer. Now, granted, in the tune, you're going to play with driver command torque to give you a little bit more throttle response, but you've really got to dial it up when you go from 309 to a 370. So, but aside from that, I mean, it's, it livens the car up a little bit, but I don't think that it livens it up to the point where, it's totally worth it unless you're only at the drag strip. So, nag one, yeah, I'd do it just because the transmission ratios aren't as aggressive. Oh, and to that point, a nag one with a 370 feels a lot like an A8 car to drive. Hemihead is saying, would need to do an email tune. What is required for data logging with HP tuners, quarter mile runs, street pulls? Don't have good dyno access, so dyno pulls will be difficult. Street pulls is all you need. You'd have your cable. You would have your laptop with the software there, obviously. If Alex was doing a remote tune, you need to download TeamViewer 13. So there's that. So TeamViewer 13. And just, a stretch of road where you can carry, like say third gear from say 2,500 RPM until 6,200 RPM. That is how those remote tunes are run. And for the most part, as long as there's nothing mechanically wonky with the car, the process is actually pretty easy, pretty laid back. If there's anything weird with the car, this happens a lot with long tube headers, by the way. You get a lot of exhaust leak issues with long tube headers. But as long as there's no issue with exhaust leaks on the long tube headers, which can jack up the O2 readings, or issues with something being wrong with some hose on the intake manifold, just pick something. Anyway, as long as it doesn't have any vacuum leaks, you'll be in good shape. Pretty easy process. Hang on just a second. Himmy Head, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Love the 1320 reference. I dig it. Thank you very much for the quarter-mile contribution. Again, your contribution dollars will soon be at work with the street setup on this grill here, as well as those brake lines, which I'm still trying to figure out how the one that ruptured, but it ruptured, and that's kind of where we're at with 50-year-old vehicles. So, yep. But thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution, saying thanks for the knowledge and the content, man. Thank y'all for hanging out with me, man. I appreciate it. Y'all are what make it great. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mike Horn is saying, a random weight question. I want to put a couple of subs in my Charger's trunk. I know less weight is better, but do you think the added rear weight could help me with traction and basically lighten the tires up? Your speaker box is probably it depends on what subs you're going with, obviously. I mean, if you're going to go with just a couple of 10s, that's one thing. Your air volume is not going to be as high. If you're going to go with a set of, 12s, you're going to start to get into a situation where to really get the most out of those subs, you need quite a bit of air volume. If you're going to go like a single 15 or dual 15 or whatever, it just depends on what you're going to go with. But let's say that your total enclosure is 65 pounds, maybe 60 pounds at the most. It will help a little bit, but not by a lot. Don't expect it to do too many favors for you. If you've got the right tire, you'll hook no matter what. So the weight's going to hurt you more than help you. But I mean, dude, if you got a cool sound system, who cares, right? So, by the way, one of my first businesses that I ever ran was my senior year in high school. I used to build custom speaker enclosures in shop class for guys. While I was at school, it was kind of fun back in the day. You get away with a lot more than you can now. Who's even saying, I run mostly 8th mile. Will there be any advantage going from a 262 to a 392 gear if I get traction? It goes through the gears a little bit too quickly. I don't think that the 392 gear is going to do you a whole lot of favors just because you're going to go shift, shift, shift. I think you're going to be in 2 more gears with that setup. I'd probably look at a 370 if you want to gear it at all. Or you're starting off with a 262, maybe kick up to a 309 with a limited slip. I think you'll be pretty happy with that. Oh, here he goes. Oops, 309 gear. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, stick with the 309. You'll be in good shape. Shawnee's saying 309 gear is a no-brainer for a Hellcat. I love mine better. Better 60 foot, better mile an hour all the way around. Yeah, so let me tell you this. 262 gear is fun on the street. How do I put this? At the drag strip, the difference between a 262 and a 309 is significant, to say the least. 60 foot is better, but the mile an hour out the back end is something that I cannot stress enough as far as the difference. I mean, you're talking about picking up 3 miles an hour with just a gear swap. I mean, it trucks it on the back half of that track. So, yeah. And here's the funny thing. I don't understand why the Hellcat isn't optioned with a 309, but a red eye is. That's annoying. But anyway, I digress. Calson and I saying, on the Hellcat, when you put the car in eco mode, does it use the same 4 cylinders, and will it cause any adverse effect if you use it for a long time? Actually, there is no 4-cylinder effect. I think Alex hit me before that. All it is it's numbing up the throttle a little bit. It just basically doesn't allow a lot of torque input early on. So no cylinder deactivation. You're cool there. What's funny, so I like playing with my Hellcat. One of the cool things about having a Hellcat is that you can run it in 500 horse mode, you can run it in valet mode, you can run it in eco mode, you can run it in 700 horsepower mode. Having a Hellcat is like having a bunch of different cars at your disposal, but the only maybe bummer about 500 horse mode is that it goes into street mode for the transmission, but it's beside the point. It's still a lot of fun to play with. And but yeah, no, there is no cylinder deactivation. And I had put a tune together that basically, I mean, it was a valet tune that wouldn't let it run past like 3,000 RPM instead of the 4,000. It was actually pretty funny, and I locked a buddy of mine's car up with it. He was pissed. He told me I had 1 of 2 choices. He could either disconnect the battery or, anyway, long story. Anyway, I told him the code to unhook it. Let's see. Ruben saying, thanks for your knowledge, BMAC. It gives me the confidence I was hoping for. Can't wait till it's done. We got the Mopar shootout in late September in Sacramento Raceway. You're going to have a lot of fun with that. Got the arm flex thumbs up. I like it. Ball guy with the shades. Very cool. Yeah, no, you'll be in good shape, man. Like I say, just stick to the recipe. Gumbo will come out great. Cleaver Enterprise saying, what up, B? What up, Cleaver? 392 Charger 2018 Hemi Fever email tune for motor and trans leg maker tune and 180 thermostat. Today, Mishimoto thermostat got stuck. That happens. Temps got to about 260, but maybe for 5 minutes before looks like I lost you. Noticed. Anything I should be worried about? Swapping the thermostat out quickly. She's running fine. Anything I should be checking. 16,000 mile daily driven. Anything mileage or maintenance. So the only things that I would be a little bit concerned with, number one, you need to change the oil like now, because we just don't know what oil temps got to, or for really how long it was running in that condition. However, 260, it's bad, but I've seen worse, especially when these thermostats just lock up on you. So, I would say change the oil, and I don't know, if it were my car, I'd have the cooling system flushed just to be on the safe side, although it probably doesn't need it. I would still do it. So do that, and I think you'll be in pretty good shape. Check for anything out of the ordinary, but typically if it just gets hit like that, you'll probably be in pretty good shape. It's one of the benefits to having an iron block in this case. So, they just don't distort the way that an aluminum block would. Sean's asking, did you race any Hellcats with your 392 at the strip and embarrass rookie Hellcat drivers or give them a big challenge? I used to go sniping after Hellcats with my SRT. So, the first Hellcat I ever raced, I smoked it with my 392 because the person driving it was on stock tires. So that really wasn't a fair race. But on the street, it was a lot of fun trying to coax a Hellcat to play from a dig. Because you got to remember, a 392 on a drag radial on the street, you can kind of roll into the throttle and, not light switch it, but you can roll into the throttle kind of quick. That girl will hook and she will book. We're talking 0 to 60s in the 3.6, 3.7 range. Slowest would be 3.8s. That's tough to do in a Hellcat. Even on a drag radial, you're pedaling it to get there. Now, once the Hellcat gathers up her skirt, starts rowing you, it's a different story. But she's got to gather up her skirt, and getting them to about 100 miles an hour, that 392 would be giving that Hellcat all the hell it could handle. So, yeah. I mean, it's just it's funny. I'm laughing because now I've got a Hellcat, and I'm just going, oh, shit, I'm going to roll up on somebody that has some experience with either a Scat Pack or an SRT or something like that. And I'm going to be staring at their taillights for the better part of about 3 seconds before I can get this thing to actually act right and hook. You know, even lighting them off in second gear, it can be a little bit touch and go because you're kind of waving into the throttle. Plus, you got to do it in manual mode. There's ways to do it, and I never ran into anybody that was any good with it on the street. Now, that being said, running them from a roll is really never going to get you anywhere, especially if it's got a 309 gear Challenger or Charger for that matter. Let's see. But yeah, no, I used to go sniping after them all the time. Kim McDavid saying, I have a 2006 Viper Coupe. Would a tune do anything for that car? I have HP tuners. The car is a blast to drive. A lot more fun than my red eye. Well, you and I are kind of rowing the same boat. I'm a 3-time recovering Viper owner. The tune for that car, though, you're just not going to pick up a lot. You'll pick up some, but just don't look to shatter the internet with any gains that you're going to get on that car with a tune. They're already pretty good from the factory. You know, you might get something along the lines of, you know, better throttle response. But my suggestion would be, you know, yeah, go ahead and get the tune, put a 354 gear in it, and call it good. Cleaver's saying, change the spark plugs around 50K. Oh, on his car. Yeah, you're in good shape. Oh, Boosted, he was saying only 13 thumbs up. Come on. Yeah, no kidding. Actually, we probably got a little bit past that one. Let's see. That was about almost 10 minutes ago. Cleaver's saying, Mike, he's got 215s and no difference at the track, but I did get 275 tires after the subs. First drag pulls were 245s. Oh, yeah, for sure. I didn't pass anybody up. Kevin's saying, hey, Mason, what time quarter mile do you think a NAG 157 will make with the 370 gear exhaust, long tubes, and transmission tune? I mean, you'll be in the mid-13s, somewhere, you know, mid to low 13s in really good air. But you're going to need a tire to do it. I just don't know if he'll be in the 12s. He might tickle high 12s, but it'll be kind of tough. It just depends on how much weight reduction you want to put into it also. Mike's hanging out with Cleaver right now, looking for 212s. 510's checking in, saying Sacramento Raceway, look for my red Duster running down the track. It's a 6.4 T56 swap. Very nice. For an 18 Challenger Scat, I actually saved space by getting the 215 versus one box 15. Can put double stroller in the back. Very cool. Speed Freak's asking, hey, what are the best settings to do a good fun burnout in? Traction control fully off? I do traction control fully off all the time in my car. So yes, for sure. Slime Coot is saying, I saw one of the well-respected tuners offer a flex fuel tune for E85. Any opinion on this? Does Pikes offer a full flex fuel tune? Pikes doesn't. And here's the thing. You may be talking about, not Arrington. Anyway, I know what you're talking about. I've got Lund. It keeps ramming its head in there. It's not Lund. It's and it can't be Arrington. It is anyway. For whatever reason, the name escapes me. I'm looking right at it in my head though. So here's the deal. There are some flex fuel protocol tunes that I have heard of. I have seen a few that that didn't quite work all that well. And what was happening is, so there's a few funky things that happen with these cars. And one of those is the way that they use flex fuel in vehicles that have flex fuel is they're looking at knock values. If you have a Hemi though, chances are you will have adjusted knock down. You'll at least numb the knock sensors a little bit. And what that can do is it can confuse the system. It's looking for a specific range and it's not there. And I think there's some, without getting too technical, because there's some things that I have some knowledge on, but I'm not really that well versed in as far as just the deep technical stuff. But I do know how it works. And the issue is that if you don't have everything in the tune that makes sense to the protocol for the flex fuel, it pisses it off because there's no sensor. Now, I've heard of people running the GM sensor and doing some other things. I just don't know how well that's working. And for those that have posted up and said, oh yeah, it works great, it's doing great. If that were the case, I would think that Alex would already have been working with it, or Doc Diff would have been working with it. You know, some of the guys that just do Mopar, do a lot of Mopar at that, would have kind of been in the know with it. And so far as I can see, it's just not there. So anyway, for what it's worth, I would just say that the technology is in there, but making it work kind of goes against some of the things that make the tune work to begin with, if that makes any sense with those knock sensors. Let's see. Cleaver saying, thanks, be changing the oil tomorrow and coolant flush. Yeah, I'd say go for it on that one. Catalyst is asking, can you get a 392 NA into the 9s? Yeah, you can. But to explain to you what it would take to get that thing into the 9s would probably take until tomorrow morning. I mean, you're looking at a situation where you've got something so heavy already that you're basically working on about almost I'll put it to you like this. You would have to shave 800 or 900 pounds out of that car, number one. I don't know where you're going to do that. Basically, you'd have to turn it into a drag pack car. And at that point, yeah, I mean, if you get the weight down to, 3,700 pounds, then now your power is doing a lot more work for you. Getting it into the 9s, though, I mean, we're talking 9.999. You're talking cam, converter, tons of weight loss, intake, and the cam is going to be a straight drag race endeavor, very aggressive torque converter. But you can at least make a play for it. And, mid-10s has already been kind of a done deal. But the thing is that nobody's really going after it because, number one, it costs way too much money. Number two, you're butchering up a pretty nice, and let's be honest, fairly expensive car. But again, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all those dollar bills. And the other thing is you got to remember that once you start trying to do that with one of these cars NA, it is a race car now. And you're getting away from what really makes the Mopars great, which is the fact that they're very strong running street cars. When you start to make one a race car, it's just like anything else. Once you race car something, you start to suffer by comparison. And I mean, no matter how much weight you can pull out of a Challenger, it's still almost always going to be heavier than anything you're going to compare it to. It's a very, it's a noble goal, but you've got to be able to bankroll that noble goal. And I don't think that most guys really want to go down that path. It's one of the reasons why you don't see the aftermarket shining onto the 392s. You just don't. You've only got 2 aftermarket intakes. One of them is a high RPM deal anyway. You've got to have enough cam for that. When you have enough cam for that, you start to lose torque down low. Car turns into a bit of a turd. You got to throw gear at it. You got to throw converter at it. Next thing you know, you don't really want to drive the thing on the street. Now, you can make about 650 horsepower with the thing, which is fine, but now you've got to deal with the fact that it's not really going to be streetable. And on top of that, it's still going to be heavy no matter how you look at it. At least heavy again by comparison. So, anyway. Let's see. David is asking, what is the best long tube header? Cooks, no doubt about it. And shorty header, 2018 300S57. Should I use cats or not? Mine are bad and need to be replaced. So here's what I would suggest with that. Number one, go with a set of Cooks. Go with the high flow cats, and I think you're going to be good to go. Keep in mind, yes, I know that they are expensive, but you get what you pay for, and if you plan on keeping the car any real length of time, that's the route you want to go. Their fitment is awesome. Cats are great. I wouldn't hesitate at all at putting those in my car. And yes, you need to use cats. I would suggest anyway. Mike is asking, is there an oil that is best for, hang on, I got Justin texting me and it's blocking you guys out here. Talking about a ProFlex controller, but I didn't see the other, for that E85. I'll have to check up with you this, find out more about that one. I'd like to know more about it. Asking, is there an oil that's best for Mopars? I have a 6.1 E85. Yes, Pennzoil Platinum 040. A lot of guys use Mobil 1. There's nothing wrong with Mobil 1. Works great. So I would say the Pennzoil or the Mobil 1 or Castrol. Oh, Shawnee, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Catching that one late. Saying, not everybody, fun Mopar talk and info. See ya. Good seeing you, brother. Oh, Shawnee is saying about Cooks too. Yeah, they're a really good, the fitment on Cooks is just second to none. And the quality is second to none too. Let's see, 510 Kurt Dog saying, keep an eye out for my 1320 out there in Sacramento Speedway, my first time too. Very nice. 510 Kurt saying, oh, at Jerry, he's going to keep an eye out for him. I like it. David saying, thank you very much for the advice. No problem. And Kevin saying, I see to take down 392s on my 2014 5.7 Challenger, I'm going to need full bolt-ons in that Joker cam. Hopefully I can get into the high 11s or low 12s. Yeah, no, so that's the thing with that Joker cam from Dr. Diff, full bolt-ons, wheel and tire setup, and a lot of practice, you can definitely get that thing. I'm sure it's going to be a 12-second car. We need to get Dr. Diff's dad's car to the drag strip on a drag pack so bad I can't even see straight. That thing would be a riot. But yeah, it takes a little bit. And but the thing about it is, I mean, you can definitely get there. It's just with, you know, with any goal, there's going to be a lot of practice that comes with it. The main thing is just going to be knowing that there's clearly some precedents for guys that have done really well before you. So there's that to consider also. But one thing that, again, I wanted to get into, and this is what one of the topics that we were going to talk about was, you know, taking a look at the DA. How does that affect your car, and also how does that affect your tune? So getting back to it, the reason why I wanted to bring this up was it's the middle of summer, and one of the issues, especially with Hellcat owners, is guys will go, man, the car just doesn't feel as quick. I'm taking it to the drag strip. It's not as fast. You know, I'm down, you know, whatever amount of time that you're down. It'll be significant though because of just the weather and the conditions and everything else. And this is about the time guys start tuning their cars. And, you know, when the question came up about torque management being taken off of the cars and and everything else. Okay, the issue comes up where they start getting their cars tuned around this time of year. It wakes them up a little bit. They get a little bit more driver command torque, so the car gets a little bit peppier. But where guys really start to screw up is they numb up the knock sensors too much. They don't run enough fuel, and when you get the thing, and they try to throw too much timing at them. Bad idea with Mopars, as we've discussed on many occasions. But the problem is that you get them in really low DA. And here's the thing. So the reason why my track rental is called Mopar-mageddon is because every year I tell guys, look, if you're coming in from altitude, coming in from Colorado, you're coming in from Amarillo, you're coming in from, the high desert, you're coming in from somewhere where you're already sitting at a high altitude, make sure that you change up in your tune. These are guys looking to set national records. Make sure you look at your tune and be honest with yourself as far as what your airflow numbers are going to be, because the stock tune, you can peg the stock tune in low enough DA. I'm going to repeat that because it is kind of an important point, and I'm going to tell you why it's an important point. You can peg your airflow table in low DAs, in negative DAs, with a stock Hellcat. So when guys start to mess with the tune, you've got to remember that if you get your car in low density altitude conditions and you're going well past your airflow table and you pop something, that's not necessarily uncommon, or at least it used to be not uncommon, because the cars are running too much timing. So what I can tell you is this: if you're going to get your car tuned, get it tuned during the winter time. Get it tuned with the crappy winter blend gas, even though summer blend is pretty shitty, and I've been watching that on my data logs. But just kind of a word to the wise, we're talking about DAs and humidity and all this other kind of stuff. Because the other side to this chat here is, I get a lot of questions, and I meant to hit on this earlier. I get a lot of questions about the no-tune pulleys. And, the incognito comes up a lot. Here's the thing with that. I know Doc Diff did one with the Hellraiser pulley, or was it Incognitus or whatever it was, where the car was pulling like 7 degrees of timing on the stock tune on short-term knock retard. It was basically in full-on self-preservation mode, okay? And that's one of the reasons why I don't get nutty with, knock sensor sensitivity. I mean, I want my car to, look, a degree or two of timing is not as much as you might think with one of these cars. But the idea that thing was in self-preservation mode with those pulleys will tell you all you need to know about what can happen with a bad tune or with a hot tune in those types of conditions. Works in high altitude, but it doesn't work in low altitude. And that's just the way that it is. And you guys that are versed in flight, you'll know that piston engine, any engine, loses power at a rate of 3%. If it consumes oxygen for every 1,000 feet you go up, you're losing 3% of your power. Now, turbos are a little bit different story. Turbos will hang on as long as the compressor will make boost. That's why they're great for Pikes Peak, or, if you live at high altitudes, turbo's the way to go, because it'll keep gathering up air until it hits a certain boost number. But if you've got a centrifugal or a positive displacement supercharger, it's just like having a bigger engine. So keep that in the back of your mind, because that's something that's going to be coming up here in the next 6 months. And these guys that are out, that are getting the pulleys right now because their car feels slow, getting the tunes right now, getting the Ripa thing, or the Hellraiser, Incognitos, all of that, you just kind of sit back and go, oh shit, this is going to get interesting, because those things have been flying off the shelves. Just know what you're getting yourself into, guys. Let's see. Kevin's saying, I seem to take down 392s in my 2014 5.7. I'm going to need full bolt-ons and that, and that Joker cam to get into those numbers. Absolutely. And like I say, give Justin a call, and he can get you taken care of. Very well, as a matter of fact. Boosted Emmy saying, I have some catless mids that came off my Scat Pack. Can I put them on my Hellcat without retuning? No, you can't. You're going to have to accommodate the lack of cats in the tune. The Hellcat has a 285 upper, duster off tune, and demon injectors. Yeah, no, you'll just have to call up, call up duster off and just have him adjust the tune for no cats. It'll take a minute. There's actually a lot of parameters you got to mess with to yank the cats out of that tune, but he'll get you squared away with that. But it'll bolt up, same stuff. Mike Hoare saying, want to install a roll cage in my Charger with racing seat belts for all front back seats. Is that even possible? Maybe with a custom cage that doesn't block the back seats. Well, I don't know that you can do it for the rear, mainly because your 4-point harnesses are going to need to have, well, I mean, you'll have an anchor bar. You'd have to have an anchor bar in the back, which you could custom fab. I just don't know how you would work around the seats for the rear. But I'm sure there's a way to do it. It'll just take custom seats to make it happen. But you will need an anchor bar for the shoulder straps. And just remember that your straps always go at a 90-degree angle to your shoulder. You never want those things going down. That'll snap your collarbone. You want them going across at least at a 180-degree angle, or a 90-degree angle to your shoulder right here. Mike Warren saying, want to install, oh, I already got that one. Kevin's saying, thanks, Mason. It's because of your info that I'll be trying to tell people the 5.7 cars to try and create something unique with the right bolt-ons and cam with that 370 gear. No need to feel inadequate. Man, listen, I appreciate you, man. Good visiting with you, too. I'll say this. Oh, shit. Slime Kuda's got the 426. I like the number saying, break fun, stay healthy. We need you for the chat. So I'm staying healthy. And by the way, y'all, don't forget to wear your mask, your gloves, your hand sanitizer. Do all of that stuff, man. If not for yourself, do it for your friends, your family, and your community. Here's the thing, guys. I mean, and Kevin, you'll hear me say this a lot on the channel too. One of my dream builds is a 5.7 build. So my work truck, the fleet is all Dodge 5.7s. My personal work truck is a 5.7 quad cab. I love the 5.7. I love the corporate motor. That 5.7 is something they put in everything, and it's kind of detuned from the factory, as you might expect a corporate motor to be. And so it's always fun to see how well that they react. And so, Doc Diff's dad's car is a great example of just how nasty one of those things can be with the normal hot rodder bolt-ons. I mean, you're talking about, headers, cam, ported intake, ported throttle body, one of the Fastman throttle bodies. All of those things work in concert with that car, with Justin's tuning, to put together something that just straight up kicks ass. So, again, I've been dying to put together a 5.7 car just because it's every man's hot rod, and let's be honest, 392s are expensive, and if something goes south in a 392, it's even worse. So, 5.7's just got a lot of cool things going for it, and it's a shame that there's not any more guys that are going after 5.7s and really driving the narrative of 5.7 liter performance. And the other bad part about it is that Mopar just doesn't really support them. Well, the 392s for sure. You can get the scat packages through Mopar, but the reality is that the aftermarket's just done a lot better job. Even though the aftermarket did kind of develop those scat packages, that's all an Arrington setup, but it's a lot of older technology. The new stuff is far and away better. So, but yeah, love me some 5.7 stuff for sure. Ryan McKenzie checking in saying, hey B, you said in one of your videos that you prefer a Challenger 392 auto over a manual. I'm trying to figure out if I want an auto or manual scat pack. Man, that is entirely up to you. I will tell you this. There's the 392 cars lend themselves very well to having an automatic. Especially if you're going to be drag racing the thing. They need the extra, they need the torque converter to help them get out of the hole easier. And the 8-speed is an amazing transmission. Now, if we're talking about a NAG 1, then you need to have a gear to go along with it. Again, we're talking about just the sheer mass of these things. They're not light, and that's really what you're up against, is just overcoming the inertia of getting these things up and rolling. Now, all that being said, the 6-speed cars are a lot of fun to drive. Barton shifter, the clutch. For some reason, I want to call it a detent mod. That's Corvette. Anyway, the clutch valve mod, that along with, again, it's starting to paper up here, but you know, exhaust system. You can either go with like a 6.1 or 6.4 set of headers and catback, or go with the long tubes, which is what I would do. You can just do more stuff with the smaller displacement cars, and in a way they become more fun just because it's something you can play with. The thing is that the 392 cars, they get a little bit rowdy, so that's the other side to them. But I will say this, they're fun in short doses, and I mean, if I get my hands on a 14 SRT with a 6-speed, that'd be pretty sweet. So anyway, got off topic a little bit there. Let's see. Mike Warren's asking, have you ever seen a manual charger? No. The 06 to 10 third gen Hemi. No, I have not. Dallas Waller saying, hey B, what do you think about 1320 torque converter? It's the same as the truck torque converter, so I wouldn't even waste my time with it, to be honest with you. I'd go with something more aggressive. Ryan McKenzie saying, thanks B, thank you very much. Kevin saying, speaking about the 5.7s, you boys in Texas with those Rams aren't playing any games. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. You've got some fast-ass Rams down here. I mean, within a stone's throw, you've got Justin's truck, which, you know, should be running 10s. You've got several NA trucks, now granted with very aggressive converters and things like that, but you got several NA trucks that are in the 11s. So lots of weight reduction, drag pack, things like that. But all that being said, and Cam, of course, but all that being said, there's some pretty fast stuff running around that is surprising, to say the least, especially when it comes to just the trucks. NA is kind of, it's tough to beat the Dodges. You can make a case that the Coyote trucks, you can eke a little bit more out of them, but that's mainly with that 10-speed auto. I will say that the Mopars are just more fun to drive. Mike Horn saying, see you, brother, keep doing what you're doing. See you, Mike. Hope you have a great evening, buddy. Saying, I think I speak for all of us when I say it may not get tired waiting to hear for a question to be answered, but I know you're going to give it 100% and full answer. Man, I appreciate that a ton. I really do. Yeah, and I do try to get to everybody. That's the thing. And a lot of times, you know me, I'm going to start talking about something, getting a little bit too in depth on the answer that I'm giving, but you know how it is. I mean, if somebody's asking the question, then somebody else might be thinking about it, and you know, the tide raises all ships. You know, hopefully I'm not boring you to tears too much, but I do enjoy hanging out with you guys for sure. Anyway, getting back to that topic though, on the tuning thing and the DAs and stuff like that, it goes without saying that the humidity thing was affecting the way that the car ran last night. But what I will say is this. It's summertime, and you guys have heard me talk about this a lot too. And, I'm collecting data. Typically if I'm at the drag strip and I'm collecting data, I might as well be wearing a white lab coat. It doesn't matter whose car I'm driving, my car, somebody else's. If I get the call saying, hey, we need you to collect data on a car or whatever, happy to do it. But it's funny because guys will not go to the drag strip during the summertime because the car just won't run a number. The truck just simply won't run the number that they're looking for. And they get antsy, they get bitchy, they want to start really throwing the kitchen sink at mods, pulleys, tunes, the whole works. Or they just flat out won't go because it won't run the number, period, and they have no intention on doing anything else to the car. It's just like anything else. Practice, practice, practice. Have fun with it. If you're having fun, you're going to absorb more. If you're having fun and you're playing with it and you like what you're doing and you're going to get good at it. It's just like, how do we learn the best when we're kids? It's just by playing, right? Don't forget that this is when your skill set is sharpened, and this is when you learn how to drive through some weird stuff, maybe at the drag strip, weird track prep, lots of street tires tearing up the track. You need to learn how to pedal the car, how to roll into the throttle. This is the time to do it. This is the time to get out there and learn your car and learn what works, what doesn't work, and to experiment a little bit. You don't want to be out there doing this when the temps are way low. Track prep is probably going to be a little bit iffy, but you're going to be working with fresh tires and you're going to be working on long weights and you're working with long weights, and each run is a lot more important. This is the time to get out there and play and to have fun and to sharpen your skill set, get as many arrows in your quiver as you possibly can. Listen, just like anything else, fight nights when it's all fun. All the hurt, pain, and everything else happens leading up to that. Training camp isn't fun, but game day is what you show up for. You're not paid for game day. You're paid for the practice and the work that leads up to it. Same idea, okay? Don't forget to be practicing. Practice on the street. Practice your roll-ons. Practice, practice, practice. Get out there and have a lot of fun with the car, because the more you have fun with it, the better you're going to get, and the better you get, the more ass you can kick. Let's see. Thank you again, Mike. I appreciate you, buddy. Slime Coot is saying, at what point or power level is a modified throttle body worth it on a Hellcat? Oh, man. Look, I'm going to say double pulley and a ported supercharger is about the only time I would say that throttle body is really going to give you anything worth talking about. And even then, I would go fast man true 3-ported throttle body and hope that you don't start getting any weird airflow issues and limp mode issues out of the car with that. If you get it to that point, you're going to have to change some things up in the tune. It's going to be under throttle body airflow. Hellcats can be a little bit dainty when it comes to that kind of stuff, so just know that coming into the conversation that you could possibly have that issue. But that might mainly be for some of the earlier cars. Some of the later cars don't seem to be as affected as much by that. So, word to the wise on that deal. But again, to answer the question, after you've pulled the piss out of it and have ported the blower, that's about the only time a bigger throttle body is going to help you. We've tried this. So on 285 cars, on 275 cars, on 275 ATI cars, so double pulley, the throttle body just didn't really make that big of a difference. So, sorry about that. Kevin's asking, do you have any experience with modified diesel trucks? Because from what I hear, they will eat your lunch money and then some if you don't set them up right. I don't have a lot of experience with diesels, although there is a friend of the channel, which is Multiple Mopars, and he knows more than pretty much anybody that I've ever met about diesel tuning. But that being said, yes, there are some that are nasty, nasty, nasty fast, but if you don't set them up right, correct. And when they let go, it's diesel. So if you think Mopar tax is bad, You stack diesel tax on top of that, I mean, I'll have to go into hiding. I mean, people will be chasing me down for money on that deal. Let's see. TU is asking, hey B, have you kept track of Demonology's new engine for his Demon? A little bit. If so, what ET range do you think he'll run a quarter once his car hits the drag strip? Well, after the setup, the car should be in 870s, I would guess. I mean, pretty easily. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get down any quicker than that with the setup that he's got. But I'll tell you that 870, 880 is not out of the question in really good air. And I mean in really good air. And by the way, there's not only his car is out and about, there's a few Hellcats that are out there that are putting in some work. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny to me really because just the sheer weight of these contraptions. I mean, you're talking about, even with a lot of weight reduction, 4,200 pound cars that are going 850s, 860s. I mean, that's just nutty, right? Anyway, I love that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I think he'll be, I mean, he should be in the 8s, I would think. I mean, he's already dropped a 904 or something like that. You know, there's going to be a snowman at the beginning of that time slip. I just don't know what's going to follow it. And again, it's going to take really good air. Because you got to remember, to snowman a time slip, you've got to be deep. I mean, 1,000 horsepower ain't going to get it done. You're going to need to be somewhere in the 1250 range. And again, it's going to take track prep. It's going to take shallow staging. It's going to take a lot to get, there's tricks on how to get a number out of a car. There's a lot of silly little tricks, but Herman knows how to do it. He'll have plenty in the tank to get whatever he needs done. Plus, he's a hell of a driver. He's got a lot of practice with it. And again, that just goes back to what I was just talking about. Herman's been making pass after pass after pass after pass after pass. It didn't matter what the DA was. He didn't care what the number was. He wanted to get the fastest ET that he could out of that car, no matter what he was doing on whatever day or night he was at the track. That's the main thing. And that's, if you are getting the most out of that car every time because of the experience that you have, you win a lot more races than you lose. That's also when, that level of experience, by the way, can pretty much hem up the difference between a 1,200 horsepower car and a 1,400 horsepower car. 200 horsepower difference sounds like a lot, but at that power level, it really isn't that much. And if you've got the experience behind you, you can give a lot of guys hell, especially if you're nasty on the tree. I mean, you buckshot somebody, which is just to go double zero and then a number. If you buckshot somebody on a tree, that means they've got to come up with it, and they, single digit, like a 1, double O coming out of the hole. Not only does he have to make up a tenth of a second on the starting line, but he's got to gather up that tenth of a second on the back half of the track. If you can't do that, you lose a race. It's called a hole shot victory. I've had a lot of them. Not as many as Herman, I'm sure, with the bajillion passes he's got with his Demon, but over the years I've been able to rack up quite a few. So, but guys, we are coming up in over 2 hours. Thank y'all very much for hanging out with me tonight. Appreciate all of y'all, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. I'll be collecting data. I'll be ordering on the Mistress. I'll be collecting brake parts for the C25, just to be on the lookout for that thing to start heading your way just as soon as I'm done fixing all the brake issues. And aside from that, y'all have a great one. God bless, and y'all stay safe out there. And that is a wrap on this one. Adios.